Hi, I'm DKWill, and this is DKWill Talk About It. I want to thank you for clicking on my video. I'm going to ask that you please like, please subscribe. I'm relatively new at this. I'm getting into the start of my second month on YouTube here. And today I'm going to talk about something that borders along the lines of conspiracy theory. However, it's always a conspiracy theory until it's true. And what you see in front of you is a photo of the Georgia Guidestones. And there's a lot of hoopla in the crypto community, legislation regarding cryptocurrencies, the dangers and the threats. And I'm going to cover that topic, and I'm going to give a line of thought and a line of reasoning that I think would be beneficial for all of us to consider. Now, to start it off, though, I'm going to remind you guys of a video that I did early on, July 11th. There it is on the bottom there. Okay, that's when I did it. And I want to play a part of it to introduce this topic, and it will develop as we go. Please follow along and see if it doesn't maybe open your third eye, so to speak, to look at things just a little bit differently if you aren't seeing them this way already.
Inarguably, those two dominant economies are the United States of America and China. And China has been really coming at the U.S. by infiltration methodologies because conventional warfare is pretty much suicidal at this point, especially after the previous administration built the power and might of the military back up for this country. And so, much like World War II, as that war dragged on and on and on until Hiroshima and Nagasaki, where nuclear bombs were dropped to end the war.
We're going to stop there, the key being the war going on between the USA and China. If you want to watch the rest of that video, of course I'll put the cards in the video, and I really encourage you to do so. But now let's develop that line of thought. Many have seen this, but it's most certainly worth a look and a see. So we're going to look and we're going to see it.
Enforcement-only approach landed us. It landed us in this place where we have huge gaps around the world from a U.S. financial center perspective. Without a doubt, China is taking advantage of that. You know, it's no accident that there are more Alipay users today
is taking advantage
than all of the major other global fintechs combined. And we have to make a decision, right? The U.S. government really has to make a decision as to whether it wants to be at the center of what I believe we have potentially in crypto, which is transformational technology that can bring many, many more people into that financial ecosystem.
The U.S. government has to make a decision.
And that, from my perspective, is the real national security issue. Because if we shove these innovators who are like extraordinarily big brains, right? If we just push them out of the United States, I fear that 3 to 5 years from now, we're going to wake up in a fundamentally different place from a global financial infrastructure perspective, and the U.S. is going to get, in many ways, in many parts of the world, we're really going to get left behind. Enforcement only.
Is that the goal for the U.S. to get left behind? You'll recall the video I showed from my channel that China has infiltrated the United States. And if we as regular people, regular citizens of this country, can see what's happening, do we really fool ourselves to think that the people who were elected into service for this country don't see what's happening? What role do they play in what's happening? Clearly, I'm not alone. Any of you who embrace this thought is not alone. We're not alone in seeing this as it is. Well, I found an article here, and Senator Lummis says amendment to save crypto innovation facing major headwinds. as infrastructure vote looms. August 6, 2021, Senator Lummis says amendment to save crypto innovation is facing major headwinds. Now, you just heard the young lady's comments about getting left behind. If the technology originates, and I'm talking about Ripple and XRP, because that's the nuclear bomb. If the technology originates here in this country, why are we the ones being left behind? Does that make any sense to anybody? Not to me. It doesn't make sense to me. Senator Toomey said Congress should not rush forward with this hastily designed tax reporting regime for cryptocurrency, especially without a full understanding of the consequences, by including an overly broad definition of broker. The current provision sweeps in non-financial intermediaries like miners and network validators and other service providers. Moreover, these individuals never take control of a consumer's assets and don't even have the personal identifying information needed to file a 1099 with the IRS. Simply put, the text is unworkable, and they plan to offer an amendment. I've worked at a bank. I've worked for the state. Okay. Personal identifiable information is not willy-nilly to go to some anonymous miner or network validator whom you never meet. And do you think they know that? Do you feel comfortable with your personal identifiable information, your account numbers, and everything else being shared with miners? I don't. I don't, and I won't. And so we have something similar that's flying around on YouTube. I'm not on Twitter, folks. I do strictly YouTube. I'm not on Facebook. I have accounts in one way or another, but I don't really use them. Maybe I will as this channel grows. But you can see there, we need you, is what Cynthia Lummis says. Call your senators. And I've seen a shout out to some of the other YouTubers, Digital Perspectives, Digital Asset Investor, and those of the like who are sharing the phone number. I encourage everyone else to go to that phone number. If you are inclined to do so and you want to speak up on this matter. Because it even says here, any person solely engaged in selling hardware or software for which the sole function is to permit a person to control private keys which are used for accessing digital assets on a distributed ledger. That is your hard wallet, people. That's your hard wallet. That's your Nano S. That's your hard wallet right there. They're after it. And so I mentioned that China is infiltrating us because the young lady called on government to do something. Why isn't government doing something that's in the interest of this country? Well, maybe this has something to do with it. Here, Paul Warburg said, we will have a world government whether you like it or not. The only question is whether that government will be achieved by conquest or consent. Wow. Well, who is he? He was a Council on Foreign Relations, architect of the Federal Reserve System, in his address to the U.S. Senate on February 17, 1950. And I showed both versions because in this version he says, we shall have a world government whether or not we like it. And on the previous government, he says, whether you like it or not. And there is a distinct difference in the terminology. But the fact that it says Federal Reserve System tells me a clue because that's a crooked cabal system out the gate. And just so you don't get it twisted, this gentleman also said that the main obstacle to a stable and just world order is the United States. New world order, perhaps? I might get a little passionate on this video because I can't believe people can't see it or people are not taking note to see what's going on. But I'm going to put it in front of you. And this is it. And I can't leave something out. I have to include it all. Let's see if this, not at all, but whatever I can afford to put into this video here without taking up all of your life. But nonetheless, let's see if Mr. Brad Garlinghouse is on the same wavelength as Senator Lummis. What was her name? I'm sorry, ma'am. Lummis, Senator Lummis, and on the same wavelength as Sigal Mandelker. Let's see if Mr. Garlinghouse thinks the same way. Let's listen in.
I think it's very clear that China has been extremely strategic on this point. As Sigal already pointed out, they started years and years ago. The U.S. is very late to this party, and the U.S.'s engagement, as we've heard, is not so far in supporting. The United States, the Internet of Information, as we know it today, in part thrived because there was that regulatory clarity in the late 90s. And we're doing the opposite here. Here's a massive new industry that I believe, without question, will underpin the future of our financial systems, not just around payments, where Ripple primarily works today, but more broadly than that. And if the U.S. doesn't get ahead of this, if we don't have that clarity and that certainty, and again, I thought in my judgment, when you're dealing with an alcoholic who doesn't want to admit they have an alcohol problem, to say that we have certainty, we have clarity, is like the alcoholic saying, I don't have a problem. Like, this is the elephant in the room, and I think what you've heard from Sigal, I think very eloquently, if we don't address this, we're going to fall further behind.
Yeah, we're going to fall further behind, and maybe that's the intent. And notice the key player being mentioned again is China, which is in harmony with the video we opened up with from my channel, along with the comments on Twitter from the young lady, along with the comments from Senator Lummis, and along with the intent and the goals of the nefarious people behind it. Okay, it's a conspiracy theory, people, until it's true. Well, there's even more evidence that we've been infiltrated. And I'm going to touch on those. They may be a little historical. But do you remember this? Do you remember for 20 years, a senator, high-ranking senator, had a Chinese spy who worked for her? Do you remember that? Chinese spy. You'll note that it says a Chinese spy. Okay, so it's not hyperbole. It's not conjecture. No, she had a Chinese spy working for her for 20 years. And so the links will be in the description. She's not alone. This man here, Swalwell, affair with a Chinese spy. And this man, Mr. Swalwell, was on the House Intelligence Committee. And this young lady, Fang of all things, my goodness, talk about a movie name, Fang. The sad part is, the current administration admits that this is deep penetration inside the Swalwell operation by the Chinese government, while at the same time saying that we will keep the report a secret and keep it classified to protect Swalwell's feelings. Oh my goodness. And maybe save face for who? Pelosi or Adam Schiff, who's covered for Swalwell this entire time. He continued, it's not a joke. This is a deeply compromised individual, and we don't know the extent to which he's compromised or if there are other spies out there. That's a lie. They do know he's the fall guy. And quite honestly, this man and his son are equally guilty. But they want to hide the classified report on Swalwell's sexual relationship with a Chinese spy in Honeypot, Fang, that goes way back. And Miss Fang did the thing with more than just Mr. Swalwell. Interestingly enough, this is a bit dated article, but it says even amidst COVID-19 pandemic, China continues its mission of overtaking the United States in GDP, gross domestic product earnings, and becoming #1 in economic superiority. #1 in economic superiority. China is on the cusp of keeping a big promise, a vow to double its GDP and income in a decade and take the country to the forefront of the global economic power structure. It has climbed to number 2 with a GDP of $13.1 trillion. A little bit more than half of the U.S., but it's getting there. While still trailing the U.S., keeps getting closer. Forecasters expect that growth just north of 6% in 2020 will get to the stated goal of doubling the economy. Yes, they're coming after us. So, who better than Nancy Pelosi and other corrupt American politicians to help propel the Chinese forward? And that's exactly what seems to be going on. Because as you dig even deeper, you can see it's an older article. She defended Swalwell after his ties were revealed. But it was not a travesty? No, it wasn't. I don't have any concern. I don't have any concern, folks, is what she said. Well, Miss Fang, like I said, did the thing with more than just Mr. Swalwell. Is that infiltration, folks? Is that getting all up in it, so to speak? Okay, let's paint another picture. Black Lives Matter and all that other stuff. In the United States of America, I'm a United States citizen. More importantly, I'm a Christian. My king is invisible in the first place. His name is Jesus, and I'm not ashamed to say that. However, I live in this country, I pay my taxes, and I follow the laws. And I expect that doing so brings me and my family peace and security, so to speak. This is also to those with more pigmentation in their skin like myself. But this is George Soros' own words. I'm going to bring down the United States by funding black hate groups. We'll put them into a mental trap and make them blame white people. The black community is the easiest to manipulate. Well, I take offense to that slightly because it seems to me that politicians are the easiest to manipulate. However, stop falling for it, people. Infiltration means divided from within, and a house divided cannot stand. I presented to you evidence to show that there's a new world order coming, and they're rushing hard and fast to get it in place. And so if you want to stick your head in the sand and you want to pretend like the Georgia Guidestones don't exist, that's up to you. I'm not going to do that because they do. I'm not going to pretend that I can't see that this SEC battle is something to stall the United States. I'm not going to pretend that I cannot see that it's U.S. citizens who have been prevented from making an easy road to purchasing XRP, which is probably going to make a lot of people wealthy. Because their goal is to make us a third world country, folks. And you don't have to take my word for it, because this man right here said that the main obstacle to a stable and just world order is the United States. This is the same man who said this. So it's time to stop the division, people. It's time to stop the division from within, because that's what they're doing, making you decide which side you're on. And it doesn't really matter what we're talking about. They're making you decide which side you're on. Do you care for abortion, or are you against abortion? Do you want to keep your guns, or you want to give up your guns? Should you wear a mask, or should you not wear a mask? Do Black Lives Matter, or do all lives matter? Can you see what they're doing, people? Stop. Open your eyes to the truth. And the biggest truth, a part of it is while everyone's fighting over it and trying to decide who's right and who's wrong and who's good and who's bad, and not looking for the truth, and calling those of us who tell the truth conspiracy theorists, well, it's a conspiracy until it's true. This, I have shown you, is true. I'm going to show you one more truth in closing. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. If it is the goal of the New World Order to maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, what do you think they're going to do with the other 7.3 billion people? Maybe they're going to guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. Guide reproduction wisely, in other words, control when you have or don't have a baby. It was God who said, be fruitful and become many and fill the earth. People, This is a ad-lib video that I felt the need to do. It's one take and one take only. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. I'm DKWill, and this is DKWill Talk About It. I want to ask you to like, I want to ask you to subscribe, I want you to share, and I want you to come back. I really hope that you do. Have a wonderful day.